Okay, everybody, welcome. Back to Impact here. It's been a couple of weeks. Dev and I had a bit of a break, and Dev again is on set, which is really cool. But he's not here to help me out with the podcast today. But that's okay. I'm gonna wing it on my own here. So I've got a really cool guest. He's in Saskatoon, which is awesome. Another fellow Canadian here, and so we're gonna just drop right into the intro right now. Okay, here we go. So, does the new home delivery craze frustrate you as how much plastic packaging is used in products that is sent to your home? Like almost every day. That's like our house here with our kids and everything. There's stuff coming in every day from various companies. If there was a plant-based solution alternative to all this plastic, wouldn't that be just unbelievable? It would really change things in our world. Well, our guest today has a goal of eliminating 10 billion pounds of waste on his mission to create a waste-free future. So please welcome Jeremy Lang to Impact. And I'm just gonna, before I'm gonna have Jeremy say something, I just got to mention that our sponsors here are, first is Surfrider Foundation, amazing organization. I've been kind of doing some pro bono work with them for years. They're dedicated to protecting our oceans and our oceans and waves and beaches around the world, and getting all that darn plastic out of the ocean. That's what they do. And the Pachamama Alliance, which is empowering the indigenous people of the Amazon rainforest to preserve land and their culture. And so if you like what we're doing, please like, share, and subscribe to our Impact podcast. And yeah, I just want to say hi to Jeremy. How you doing?
Hey, Nigel. Great. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. We're both kind of on the same path here, and in our pre-chat, it was really cool chatting with you here.
For sure.
What I'm going to start with is we've had many guests on our show, been really fortunate, and we talk about this with quite a few of them, is a circular economy. So could you explain exactly what a circular economy is to our listeners?
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
We always try to think about nature. We always mimic nature. There is no waste in nature. Human beings are the only species that create waste.
Yeah.
So everything, it should go back to the earth. So we started with like plastic. Plastic is an amazing material, but the end of life is not natural.
Yeah.
Right. It just builds and builds in a linear progression, whereas everything natural goes in cycles. So, we started with, when we think about it, we think about like an alternative to conventional plastic that can actually go back to the earth when you're done with it. And it comes from renewable materials, not non-renewable materials. So taking dinosaurs out of the ground to make something that lasts forever or hundreds or thousands of years and won't be recycled is a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the same thing with food waste, even, or food scraps, like plants and animals. When they die, they're supposed to go back to the earth. That's nature's fertilizer, right? There's never been a need for fertilizer. The earth has its own fertilizer. That's it all figured out. So that's the way we think about it too. Just mimicking nature and following nature's cycles.
So the products and things that we're designing, right? And everything from the plastics to, whatever. So how are we going to change this? How are we going to be able to change product design to be more, to kind of fit into this circular economy? Are there any, how are things going and how are we looking?
I think the best way is to, when you're designing a product, try and design it with the end in mind.
Yes.
So how is it going to end its life? Material science has gotten a lot better in the last 5-10 years, and as more and more companies and customers are demanding more sustainable materials, that is just keeps on advancing more rapidly. So that's how kind of we think about it. Is what if garbage was optional? What if everything you consumed could go back to the earth, from your phone case to your food scraps to your shirt to your food containers to the plastic? So that's what we're really trying to do. And right now we're really focusing on decentralizing waste management and creating smart waste appliances. The infrastructure, obviously recycling infrastructure isn't working.
No.
Right. It's been, I don't know, what has it been? 40, 50, 60 years. And
how much of it is actually,
it's less than 10%. And I think it's more than it's more like 5%. So what technology in the last 50, 60 years has gotten worse? or
Yeah.
less efficient. So that is broken. And even the composting infrastructure, the amount of organics, like that needs to be, they need some support too now, because to handle not just food waste and other organics or yard waste, but to handle these compostable plastic products. So that's kind of, those are some of the problems we're trying to solve. We're trying to get rid of plastic waste. We're trying to keep food waste out of the landfill, get them back into the soil where they belong, create healthy soil, grow healthy plants, repeat the cycle over again.
Right, right. I was just, we were chatting beforehand, and my wife and I have been watching this TV series, right, with Zac Efron,
Mm,
and he does, it's called Down to Earth, I think it's called, and he did Down to Earth, Down Under. So basically, he visits all of these sustainable businesses in Australia, from plant-based foods to guys that are regenerating the Great Barrier Reef by coral, helping coral, and also some other companies that are doing some type of saran wrap, but
mm,
based with so it's really it is really catching on. And as I mentioned before, the recycling, we all, now we have our blue bins and we take them out to the top of the the driveway, and they get picked up every whatever it is.
yes.
But I just learned this, was it last week, that on the bottom of each of your plastic thing, there's like a number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or whatever it is. And if it's a 1, it's going to get recycled. If it's 2, like it basically goes down the food chain of recycling.
Yeah.
And most of it ends up just going to trash, or on a ship. It ends up, unfortunately, in countries like the Philippines or somewhere, where it
Right.
ends up in, we sell our waste, which is not acceptable these days, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's really sad. And when you put it in that, I think it's the point now where when you put
Yeah.
it in that blue bin, you're like, is this really going to get recycled? Like,
I know,
really?
I know, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway, we
So
created a,
yeah, so
no, go
you're,
ahead.
yeah, I
Yeah.
was just gonna say, so your company Pela, right?
Yeah.
Pela, you've created a product called Lomi, is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so what exactly do you guys do here with this?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So our mission is to create a waste-free future.
Uh-huh.
We're trying to do that by creating everyday products, load everyday waste. And we started with a phone case in 2011. We launched the very
Ah,
first Pela case, which is compostable and biodegradable. Like most people keep their phones for 2 years, yet the case to protect it will last for
yes,
hundreds or thousands
yes,
of years. It's just
yes.
over-engineered, right? It's ridiculous. So yeah, started with phone cases, and then I kept building that out and tried to be, are trying to be the most environmentally and socially sustainable business as possible. So when you mentioned Surfrider and
Yeah.
1% for the planet, so we donated, I think we've donated nearly $1 million to nonprofits. So using
Nice.
business as a force of good, but also creating a whole new category of compostable phone accessories and cases. So we created that category. Now others are following, which is great, because
Great.
eventually we want all these materials to be made more sustainably.
Mm-hmm.
And what we realized, though, is we have this compostable phone case. And we realized that not everyone has access to home compost. Not everyone has access to industrial compost. And
Right.
industrial composters, they don't have the facilities or the resources to sort and read every single label to see if it's compostable or not. So
Right.
unfortunately, a lot of them, when it's compostable plastics, end up at a compost facility. A lot of them will get sorted out because they don't know, the composters don't know, and they end up in landfill anyway. So that's a
Mm.
broken infrastructure. So what we decided to do is, what if we could engineer a product, design a product that could, in your own household, we could decentralize and democratize waste management, and could take our phone cases and other compostables and break them down first,
Yes.
apply that energy so they're not sitting out in a field for months at a time. Like we can
Right.
control the
Right.
humidity, we control the moisture and the temperature and the mixing and all that. We can add different enzymes and get it back into the soil where it belongs. And along the way, we also discovered how wasteful food waste was. So
Yes.
like, I mean, it is not waste. Food waste is not waste. It's one of the most valuable natural resources. It is very valuable as a natural resource. So
Yes.
anything we can do to make it easier for people to keep their food waste out of the landfill and get it back into the soil, that's a win. So we
Yeah.
launched a product called Lomi, which is the world's
Yeah.
first smart waste appliance. We did a crowdfunding campaign last year, and it really took off. And it's making it easier for people to keep their food waste out of the landfill, get into the compost, get into the soil like that. It's kind of, you just push a button. And the neat part
Yeah.
about it
So
too.
you're taking your food waste, right? And you're
Yes.
putting it in your, it'd be like in your, well, like what we do here at home is we put it into a composting
Yes.
uh,
Yeah.
biodegradable bag,
Yes.
right?
Or a bag.
So
Yeah.
so what you're doing is you're putting it, you actually have this in your house,
Yes. Right in your kitchen
and you're putting it
counter.
in. Yeah.
Yes.
And then what's the process?
And then you put it in, you push the button, and like in 3 to 5 hours, you
Like a
have good
blender.
soil. Yeah, pretty much. It
But
mixes
then
and
and
beats
then you're
it.
drinking it, as a shake or what?
Yeah, not yet. Good idea. Maybe next. But no, what is really neat about it, one of the most common things we get is people, it's like, wow, this is
Huh.
amazing. I can't
Huh.
believe it. It's magic. Well, it's not
Ah.
magic, it's science and engineering. But basically, when you see your food waste turn into dirt, soil,
Yes.
like it clicks. Like it's when I said the recycling bin, is it really going to
Ah.
get recycled? Well, now you can see it to believe it. So it's really sticky. And we found, I think, roughly 50% of people who purchase Lomis have never composted before because
Yeah.
it's hard or they don't know
Yeah.
how. Or
Yeah.
25% have composted, but they quit because it's a pain dealing with that wet, heavy
I
bag and
know. And then the
mess,
bag tears and
smelly
it's
and
all over your
flies.
floor and it's just a
Yeah,
mess. And then your dog comes and
exactly.
eats it and it's all over the house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
So
we're
hang
just
on.
applying
So
technology to make that
but
easier.
so this is really cool. So you're basically, it sounds like an infomercial. I've never met you before.
Yeah.
This is really cool. So basically you're taking your waste, you're putting it in to this unit and
Yes.
it's whatever, grinding it all up. So now can I take this and like spread it on my garden?
Yes. Yeah. If
Oh,
plants
my
and
life's
animals
gonna
couldn't
my
go
life's
back
gonna
to,
love
yeah,
you.
just, I mean, and if fruits and vegetables and
Yeah.
like animals could not go back to the ground,
Right.
nature would not work.
Right. Right.
Right. So that is, so we're
Ah.
helping to accelerate that. We're
Ah.
using technology to speed up that process. So it doesn't have to sit in your backyard for 6 months or a year or
Yeah.
whatever. We're accelerating that. It can go, it can be a compost feedstock. It can go to your
Sure.
compost facility. We're reducing the waste by 80% too. So less pickups.
Right.
Or it can go in your backyard and go in your soil. You just have to
So
mix it at
it's
different
almost like
rates.
one of the old trash compactors of the old days, but they used to compact trash. But now
Kinda.
you're basically shrinking down your organic waste from this to this,
Yes. And you're using
probably,
it.
and
Yeah,
you're able
it's
to use it.
80% reduction. So you're not wasting it. Go to
Um,
your community garden. It's like we've done a lot of really neat testing at in
huh.
Kelowna, where our head office is in Kelowna,
Yeah.
British Columbia. We're
Hmm.
working with a farm called Helen's Acres, and they're a
Yeah.
nonprofit who feed the hungry. So we're testing the Lomi end product. Instead of going to a compost facility, we're like, let's go directly to the farm and mix it in the
Right.
soil and compare it to organic, like to compost and organic fertilizers. And it's really working quite well, if not better in certain cases. So that's really exciting. So now when I talked about the
This is so.
infrastructure, yeah.
There's something that I learned yesterday too from the
Mhm.
Zac Efron show. So these guys were visiting farms in Australia, and it's all about the soil. It's all about the soil, right?
Yes, yes,
Farming these days, we farm and we use the soil and till the soil, but after each use or actually every whatever year, the soil loses all of its nutrients and it just
yeah,
becomes like if we do it for 100 years, it becomes a wasteland, right?
yes.
So what they're doing in Australia is they're now, I don't know what they're doing, they're putting some enzyme in the soil, whatever it is. Okay.
Mhm.
They're making the soil with more so now the soil is able to be able, and the plants are able to draw down more carbon from the
Yes,
atmosphere. So this soil is actually helping climate change because
absolutely.
the soil is healthier. So
Yes,
I'm thinking that if we're able to use these organics, break them down, and then put them into our soil, like you're saying here, I mean, we're also helping drawing down the
absolutely.
carbon from the atmosphere,
Yeah,
and
you nailed
and
it.
I
You
don't know.
nailed
It
it.
just kind of hit me. Seeing what these guys were doing yesterday, I was like, this is super
Yes,
cool.
it's so
Yeah.
simple.
And
But
it's
I
so
mean, like,
simple and
but
it's
it makes
natural. Like
sense.
it's the way
So
the planet was made to
natural.
operate, right?
It's natural. Like
Yeah.
the soil is starving for organic matter,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
plants and fruits and vegetables and plants and like, I mean, like animals product, like your food scraps are very high in organic matter, and they
Yeah.
have like macronutrients that are beneficial to the soil because they have to be.
Right.
That's nature. And which is really cool is, I don't know if you like Kiss the Ground as a documentary where they talk about, we only have,
Yeah.
because we're pulling everything out
I've
of the
seen that.
soil and
Hmm.
not putting it back in. So regenerative is the like regenerate the
That's a
soil,
great
get it back into the,
great document. I saw that
yes,
during the lockdown. We got
yes,
addicted to all
yeah,
these really cool shows.
for sure.
And who was it? Was it Matthew McConaughey or somebody like that?
Yes.
They were the narrator, and it was fascinating
Yeah.
about the
And
soil
scary.
and the two farms that were side by side. The
Mhm.
one was using this new natural way of tilling or whatever they were doing. The other one was using the old style, and it was
Yeah.
basically over the fence. Theirs was like
Yes.
a wasteland, and these guys had this beautiful farm because they
Yes.
were also doing was it cross pollen, they weren't doing monocropping, they were doing multiple crops in the same, which works much better.
It's regenerative, it's natural.
Regenerative,
That's
yeah.
the way nature intended it. So what you talked
Yeah.
about, and the worst thing we can do with food scraps is put them in landfill, because there they rot
Right.
with no oxygen, and they create methane,
Oh my God.
which
Yeah.
is 20 times worse than CO2.
Yes.
And when it goes back into the soil, that's all part of the natural cycle. Like it's supposed to, that apple's supposed to die and go back to the earth, and it creates CO2 when it dies, but that's part of the natural cycle. It
Yeah.
absorbed it, it released it, absorbed, released, that type of thinking. So what you talked about, we're looking at, and we have some really good scientific data based on some EPA numbers, that when you're keeping that food waste out of the landfill, you're avoiding a greenhouse gas emission. And when you're putting that organic matter back into the soil, you're creating healthy topsoil. Healthy topsoil, as you said, helps to sequester carbon from
Draws
the
down
atmosphere.
the
Yeah.
carbon from the atmosphere.
Yeah. So more so than trees. And the scary part of that, the other scary part about the
Yeah.
documentary, they talk about, I think they said we have 50 or 60 harvests left,
I know.
because we're stripping everything out of the soil.
Out of the
So
soil.
anything we can do to
It's
get
all
it
about,
back
it's all
in
about
there.
the dirt. It's all about the dirt. Everything is
All
about the dirt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an amazing living organism that dirt is, like an
Wow.
organism. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's fascinating. And I love what you guys are doing. And I really believe that, you know, the older I get, that as an entrepreneur, and you're an entrepreneur, and I think it's not just a nice thing to do. It's our duty. It's our
Yeah.
duty to help, you know, future generations, or pass down wisdom and help, you know, turn things around here. It's not something that it's kind of a nice thing to do. It's actually something that we have to do.
Absolutely.
I
The
think
stain that,
it's a
yeah,
responsibility.
leave the planet better than we found it. And the other thing that I've heard, that I
Yeah.
can't remember who was saying it, but are we being good ancestors?
I know. If you look at the indigenous
Yeah.
cultures, I mean,
Yes.
all over the world,
Mhm.
they pretty much all say the same thing. Whatever you do, you have to think of it affecting 7 generations in the
Yes.
future, and
Long term.
and they go 7 generations in the past.
Yeah.
And you know, that's the way they think. I mean, we think of now.
Absolutely. Or the
Now.
next quarter, and what are
The
your
next,
results next quarter?
exactly. Which is
Like,
I could go off about
yes.
that. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
completely wrong what we're doing there with quarterly results. And private companies, it's the public companies, it's all wrong the way it's run.
Yeah. Speaking of First Nations, one of our favorite First Nation sayings is, "We are the people we've been waiting for."
Mm-hmm.
It's not someone else.
It's not
It's
someone
us.
else, it's us.
We can do
It's
it.
us.
Don't wait
I
for
know.
someone else. Take
Yeah.
responsibility. We can do
Yeah.
it.
I mean, and
That
we
type
were
of thinking.
chatting offline beforehand, and I'm really impressed. I'm really impressed with your kids, my kids, all my kids' friends, and the younger generation. I'm people, we used to say, oh, they're lazy. People used to say that we were lazy,
Yes.
and our parents or grandparents, oh, they're lazy. Well, we weren't lazy. But now the kids aren't lazy. The difference between the kids now and the kids that we were when we were kids is they have way more information coming in. They have so much
Yeah.
real, but I mean, good and bad, but there's a lot of
Mhm.
good stuff out there, and they're switched on. These guys are switched on so much more than we were when I was a kid,
Yes.
anyway.
Right. Yeah. And
And
it's exciting.
I mean, I go for coffee with these young people all the time. Says, Nigel, hear my idea, and it's all these great ideas. And then one of the biggest thing is that I don't want to work for a company that's not helping the planet. I don't want to work for a company that doesn't have a social plan or whatever. I can't remember what you call it.
Yeah.
But I don't want to do that. I'd rather, I want to work, but I don't want to just work to work. I want to work to make a difference. And that's
Absolutely.
almost every young person I meet these days,
Well,
which is really, really inspiring.
You nailed it. It is. And because we're mission based, we are attracting the top high value people who could have high skills, could work wherever they want, but they want to use their skills as a force of good, through business as a force of good. And it almost gets to the point where, well, why would you work somewhere else?
Why would you? Why would you? I agree. I agree.
Yeah. So,
but it's taking me, I think it's probably been since 2010. I was so fortunate. I go to this entrepreneur conclave at MIT in Boston, and there's 75 entrepreneurs, and it was supposed to be a 3-year program, but we've been going 18 years. We kept it going.
wow.
And speaker Lynn Twist came in. Lynn Twist wrote a book called The Soul of Money. She started the Pachamama Alliance as one of our sponsors here, which works with the indigenous people of the Amazon. And Lynn is just, I was this regular entrepreneur. This is in 2010, and I had my business. I had to, make money, and it was like everything was great. And I was just like, I was kind of bored with life. And she came in, and she stood up, and she blew the door. She sat beside me and I didn't even know who she was, and just blew the doors off. Next thing I know, our family are flying down into the Amazon with her. And we
Wow.
spent time with the Oshawa tribe and learned how the indigenous people have lived in balance with nature for millennia, thousands and
Mm,
thousands of
mhm.
years. And yeah, and as we left, the chief, one of the chiefs, through he spoke Quechua, which went to Spanish, which went to English to us. He basically said, now you've seen how we live and how we've lived for generations. Go back and please help change the dream of the modern world, because
Wow.
we're living in this materialistic dream.
Yes,
And we need to you know live in balance with the world, with our the world, because
absolutely.
it's a living organism,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For sure. Absolutely. That is no, thanks for sharing that. It's a great story.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what
Yeah.
we're all about. I mean, and we're not perfect and nobody's perfect, but taking the little steps and like having
The little
we're trying
steps. Yeah.
to make it easy for people to not it's you can't change people's habits and
No.
behaviors, but you can
No.
make it a little easier and
Yeah.
point people in the right direction. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
I know. Many years ago, also I was in this entrepreneurs organization for like 18 years as well. And we had a forum group, like a focus group, forum group, we call it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my buddies in my forum group was starting to really give back. He was doing a lot of inner city work with women's shelters and things. He built a women's shelter and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, how can you? He had a young family. I said, how you have a young family, you have a business, which is always business is always like this, up and down,
Yeah.
up and down.
Mm-hmm.
And you're doing it. Like, how do you do that? And he says, Nigel, it's not that difficult. It's like baby steps, one step at a time. I believe that everybody wants to help, but it's time and it's things get in the way, right? And he says, just
Yes.
do something small, like give a homeless person $5 on the street, or buy him a sandwich at Subway, or sit down and have a 3-minute conversation with them, because they're human and they
Right.
have a story. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I started, I did this, gave the guy $5 and started
Wow.
chatting, and then ended up over the years. That was quite a few years ago. It was probably back in the late 90s. It just opened up everything, changed my life. And now
Amazing.
we've been fortunate to be involved in so many things, and that gives me more joy doing things like that, especially with my family, like giving and volunteering and serving as a family unit together, and
Right.
seeing the kids and doing all this stuff. It gives me more joy than any business deal that I could
Absolutely.
ever close.
The little things are
Telling
the
you right
big
now.
things, right? And those aren't
Yeah,
little.
yeah.
I mean, you've
And they're not
changed
little,
people's
they're
lives. And
huge. Yeah. And
what's the
now it's,
ripple effect of that?
well, now my kids are almost 30. Dylan's 30, and then all of his buddies when they were young. Dave, again, my buddy Dave, said, "Hey,
Yeah.
Nigel, we go to Mexico and we volunteer for 3 days and we help build homes for the homeless." Right? We're like, okay, that sounds cool. So we ended up going once, twice, and we've gone, I don't know, 18 times. Then we started leading trips, but our kids
Yeah.
would come, and then they would bring friends, and they were like, my daughter was 3 years old, I think, when she first did it. Now she's 22. And we would go, and they would paint and they would build and they would do all this stuff. But now they're almost 30. And I get the guys come over and they go, hey, Nigel, like, when are we going to Mexico again, dude? Like, I'm like, you know what? You can lead your own
Yeah.
trip now.
Yeah.
Like,
You're
you're
good.
old enough, guys.
You
And
know how to do it.
that was the best thing ever. Like, I'd rather go do that than go to Hawaii. And I'm like, seriously? He goes, yeah, man. Like, that was like the best, because it really is. It's like this community coming together, and
Yeah.
you're giving and you're helping, and just to see the faces of the people that you're working with to help, and the family, and then your kids' friends, and then all of our friends. I mean, I was crying more than I was doing anything. It was
Oh,
just
I
like,
bet.
it
That's
was
beautiful.
very emotional. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's even like just getting back to being mission based as a company, we
Yes.
attract people with similar values
Yes.
and their
Yes.
customers are similar. I mean, it just seems like, it sounds cheesy, but it almost seems like these people and
I
we're
know.
friends and we're
I
helping each
know.
other. We're all trying to do good in the
Yeah.
world and we're trying to make our way and do what we can do, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's really neat. So,
And
and
you
it
and you
makes me
say
think of,
something. No, go
go
ahead.
ahead. Oh, I was just going to think when you talked about like just little bit makes a
That little
difference.
bit.
Like it,
Yeah.
and it's not much, and it makes me think. I was just doing a presentation, but I came across the Mark Twain quote.
Yeah.
I think it's Mark Twain. 20
Mhm.
years from now, you'd be more disappointed in things you didn't do than by things you did do, right? So like sail
Exactly.
away from safe harbors and explore and discover and create, like that type of thing. And
Exactly.
and it adds up. Those little things add up.
It does. It totally adds up. And then, you said something here in some of the notes is like it takes courage. It really takes courage to follow your dream, because it's hard to kind of step out of the norm or the status quo and do a little. But I think once you stick that toe out, it becomes a lot easier to stick another one, then your foot, and then your body, and then you get this momentum in this.
Absolutely.
I call it a life rhythm. Like it's just like you're just flowing and you're going, and it's things happen. And most of the time you have no intention. Like it just happens. You just need to
Those
do
are the
it,
best ones that work the best,
right?
where it's almost
Yeah.
like the stars align somehow.
And it does. It aligns.
Yeah. But you gotta take that, be courageous, take that step, start moving. And then like, for me, I always tell the story. The big change for me went from when it went from I've got this to we've got this. When I found partners, my two co-founders and business partners who were like, oh yeah, we can do that. Like I dreamt it. I dreamt these big dreams and how we can create a company that will be, the most sustainable company in the world and change the world. Like those crazy dreams. But I didn't necessarily know how to get there. And then when you find the right people who like, oh yeah, we can do that. Like, yeah, we believe it. We've done it. We can do it. You believe together. And then it just
and you guys are in the flow, like you get into that flow, right?
Yes.
It's not a job anymore. You hear people that, well, I do this, but it's not a job. I just do it because I love it. And you get into this rhythm, you get into this flow, and things start happening. And then it happens quicker and quicker and quicker. And next thing you know, you look back 5 years has gone by and you go, that's incredible. Like, how did we came from there to here?
Amazing. I know, like,
because you took the step, you took the leap, and you stuck your toe out, and
you keep going. And persistence, right? Just keep going. It's an infinite game. We just want to stay in the game as long as we can.
I mean, you mentioned that you were in the environmental contracting business for how many was it? 18 years, did you say?
18 years. That? So I did from 2000 to, well, I guess it was January of 2018, 18 years. And I did Pela on the side from 2009, I started doing R&D. 2011 launched the very first Pela case. 2015.
So hang on, what was the turning? So you were working as a contractor or a consultant, right?
Yes.
And then there must have been a point where you go, you know what, I'm going to go, and that's what I'm going to switch. I'm going to take that leap. I'm going to take that. See, you did it. You took that.
Yeah.
So what was that point there?
Well, I started working. I always wanted to start a company, but I didn't follow society's rules and worked for another company, started climbing the corporate ladder, and I was. And but it got to the point where I was happy, but I wanted more. And there was a voice in my head like, start a company.
Yeah.
So in 2007, actually, we were on vacation and my wife bought a book. It was The Greatness Guide, but there was a quote in that book that was, hell on earth is being on your deathbed and meeting the person who you could have become.
Wow. Yeah.
So that was like, I think I can become this person if I work at it. So I started Open Mind Developments Corporation in 2007. I didn't have a product in mind, but it's from a Metallica song, Open Mind for a different reason, nothing else matters. So started looking for problems to solve.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then 2008, Christmas of 2008, we were on vacation in Kauai. So my son was a year and a half at the time. We were on this beautiful secluded beach and we're digging in the sand and there were little pieces of plastic everywhere. And I'd never seen that before.
Yeah.
So I'm like, who would litter on this beautiful beach? And why does my son have to dig in someone else's litter? So when we got back, I learned about the Pacific Gyre and plastic in the ocean. And like we talked about, like it's not unnatural, and then wanted to find a solution. So did some R&D, found out about these biopolymers that were biodegradable, but they were very brittle. So they had limited applications. And I remember as a boy seeing flax straw being burned and thinking, and my dad told me, well, they burn it because it's so strong. And I said, well, if it's that strong, it must be good for something. And he said, well, maybe you can get older. When you get older, you can think of something. So that was in the back of my head. What can we use this waste material for? Like, don't burn the flax straw. Let's use it. And then I combined them together to make our material called Flax Stick. And they needed a product. Phone cases were out. Everyone had one. It was very wasteful. They ended up in landfill. Started with the very first Pela case. And Pela means loosely translates into peel, like an apple peel in Spanish. So when it goes back to the ground, it protects the Apple phone, but it's biodegradable, compostable. Right. Yeah. And then we kind of just built it out from there. And like I said, met my partners in 2015, but my wife and kids were the original partners. They always are, right? Your family's first.
Right. Yeah.
Packing orders up. We're packing orders out of the basement up until 2017. And finally in 2018, I think we had at least five full-time staff, and I was able to
Yeah.
quit my full-time job and do this full-time. So you just work for two jobs,
Fantastic. What a
right? For
great,
10 years. That's how it
yes. Well,
goes.
what a great story though. Oh,
Yeah.
you just nailed it there. Cause like I was with my family, we were, um, try to surf. My kids are good surfers. I kind of started when I was 40
Yeah.
but I love it. And we have so much time in the water, but, and we were able, as I mentioned before, I was able to set my business up to run without me in 2012, I think it was. So we
Mhm.
took off for a year and we backpacked and we traveled
Wow.
off the grid and we ended up in Indonesia. We were in Bali and
Yes.
I'm out in the surf and one day it's fantastic. Next day, it had rained or something and all the surf is full of plastic and garbage and junk and you can't even
Yeah.
paddle because your skegs are caught in junk. And my son
Wow.
Devin is just like, dude, this is just crazy. And Kina and my daughter's there too. And so we said, we got to do something. So we were there. Then we were in Brazil, same thing in Brazil and,
Hmm.
and all over, everywhere we surfed, it was like the same story. And we thought, it's just not localized. And then we go to Vancouver Island where we surf in Tofino. And
Yeah.
then, just up the coast, you know, um, there's, styrofoam chunks this thick and plastic and
Yeah.
stuff that comes over from Asia or wherever it's coming from or off ships. And so then we ended up saying we got to do something. So we ended up starting this thing called True Beach, which was an original. It's an app which you're able to punch in the true condition of beaches around the planet and stuff like that. And then that's
Yes.
how I connected with Surfrider because they're a sponsor.
Okay.
And yeah, so
Yes.
we started doing all this beach cleanups and stuff with these guys. But again, it was like you said, it was the family that kind of got you like, hey man, like this
Yeah.
is,
What are we leaving
I
for
don't
these
want my
people?
planet. Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
like
What are we
brutal.
leaving?
Yeah. And
You
then,
know?
it makes me think of a lot of when we talked about the ripple effect and what one conversation or one idea can make. When I
Yeah.
remember when we were camping, when I was probably like, I was a teenager,
Yeah.
young teenager, and we were camping and we were picking up, like packing up camp to go. And dad
Yeah.
was picking up our garbage and he was picking up everyone else's garbage too. And I said, Dad, why are you picking up their garbage too? And he said, well,
Yeah.
if I don't do it, who's going to do it?
Exactly. Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, if we all can make little impacts, like pick up that piece of garbage or try to start something or work for a company that's doing good thing, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, you go to your campsite, you're there with your dad and your kids, and you think, oh, the garbage is here. He's going to pick it up. That's really nice. It's all over the planet. The
everywhere.
planet is coated, everywhere I've been, everywhere, everywhere, every remote little island in the Pacific, on the windward side
So
of the
sad.
island is
Yeah.
covered in garbage. I did I was a scuba diver and I did some underwater surveys in the Red Sea back in the mid
Wow.
80s.
Wow.
And I was off the coast of Egypt on this in the Suez side, and beautiful pristine reefs, beautiful,
Yeah.
down there with massive groupers and all these things. But on the windward side of all these islands, thick in oil, and inside the
Oh
oil,
my
embedded in all
gosh.
of the oil, was all the plastic and the garbage. And this is the mid 80s,
Oh my
like
gosh.
a meter deep. Like it was,
Wow.
I never ever forget that. I never forget
Yeah.
that for the rest of my
Yeah.
life. On
No
the
kidding.
leeward side of the island was beautiful reef, but on the windward side, where the wind was hitting it,
Yeah.
right, it was bringing everything in. It was just piled high, and it's
Is
like that all around the planet.
all around. Is that what led you to create your company?
No, it's a long story. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was also I worked for my dad's environmental consulting business, which
Okay.
took me to like 10, 15 countries where we were doing emergency response planning. So
Yes.
I was mapping the coastline. So I was
Wow.
environmental mapping. But then I ended up breaking off in 92 because a lot of the people that I met, they needed solutions, like they needed equipment and
Right.
whatnot. So I had a business partner, and then my sister came too, and we broke off and we formed our own, called it AquaGuard. Actually, AquaGuard was I had a swimming pool cover company, and it was called AquaGuard. So that's how I just kept the name, and
Yeah.
it's environmental response and environmental equipment. Yeah,
Amazing. It's great.
funny. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
awesome.
30 years ago this year. 30 years ago this year,
Good
we
for
broke away.
you.
Yeah, funny. Yeah. So
That's
Jeremy,
awesome.
I want to know more. I want to know more about your Lomi. I want to know, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna put everything in on the YouTube and all the
That'd
other
be
links,
great.
all the links so people can find you. I want to know how I get one of these things because my wife is gonna just go nuts when I tell her about this.
Absolutely.
She just walked in somewhere I saw her. And so we can tell our friends. I think this is
Yeah,
amazing.
sure.
It's amazing what you're doing. And I think it's a game changer. I think it really is a game changer that we can turn our compostable waste into, something
Yes.
usable that's gonna, nutrients for the soil, and we can put it in our gardens or whatever.
You know what's cool? Yeah,
yeah.
no, thanks. I mean,
Yeah.
you can get it on, it's just lomi.com, Lomi.com.
Okay.
And but when we talked about our goal, like our North Star is create a waste-free future, but to eliminate, it used to be 1 billion pounds of waste. We kind of, that was based on plastic. We started with plastic waste, but now we're food waste and plastic waste. So we changed our goal to eliminate 1 billion pounds of waste. Well, each Lomi can process about 1,000 pounds of food waste or food scraps a year. So that's 10 million Lomis. We can get to 10 billion pounds of waste, which isn't that crazy.
It's not that
and
crazy.
we can save roughly 1 million metric tons of CO2 equivalent by doing that. But like I said, avoiding that emission from the landfill and by getting it back into the soil and helping sequester carbon out of the atmosphere. So
exactly.
So yeah, it's exciting. And we just, using technology to make things easier, help nature with technology.
And I think that's what we need to do. I think you nailed it there when you said technology. We can help save our planet here in with technology, and a lot of stuff is simple. And I think you said at the very beginning was that, if we watch nature, what nature is doing naturally, and we look at and we mimic, or we need to learn a lot more from nature. The answers are there.
Yes,
the answers are there. We just need to smarten up and
follow me. Like we talk about also like technology. Like we used to get oil to heat our homes from whales.
I know.
Then we figured out how to dig into a mountain and get coal. And then we figured out how to drill in the ground.
I know.
Oil. Now we figured out how to harness the sun.
Yeah.
So same thing. We used to wash our dishes by hand. Now we have a dishwasher.
Now we have
we used to clean our clothes by hand. Now we have a washing machine. We used to put our food waste in the landfill. Now we have a Lomi, like that type of thinking. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
And I still can't get over. I've had an electric car for 10 years, over 11 years, I think.
Yeah.
And which I was like, whatever. But then every time I drive this thing, I look at an internal combustion engine and I'm gonna go, hang on a second. We're putting, oil, we're refining oil, we're turning into this gasoline stuff, and then we're having to pump it into this car. And then what we're doing is then we're lighting it on fire and it's exploding inside this contained area. Well, now it's getting hot. We have to have all this cooling stuff to cool it down. I'm like, what the heck are we still doing? We should have stopped doing this in the 1950s. Like we're still doing this, like where we have these electric and all these other ways of powering these vehicles, where it's so simple. It's like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
We'll get there. I mean, it's exciting time. The way technology
it is
exponentially growing, we'll get there.
Exactly. So thank you so much, Jeremy. Really, really appreciate it. And we're going to put everything in the in all the links and let everybody know how to
Awesome.
find it.
Thanks, Nigel. That was fun. Thanks for having me.
That was a lot. Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you so much.
All right.